Major matchup this week between the Detroit Lions and the New Orleans Saints. Both teams are coming off tough losses to division opponents in Week 12, so they're both looking to bounce back, keep their playoff hopes alive in kind of different ways. The Lions, I feel fairly confident, are going to make the playoffs, especially too after the Vikings just lost this Monday night against the Chicago Bears. It gives them about, I think, 2 games up on the Vikings. Let me double check that actually here while we're saying that.
I think they're
the Saints,
8-3 and 6-6.
6-6. That's it. So this would actually then would put them 3 games, so the 2.5 games up. So if they're able to win, Saints, however, lost to the Atlanta Falcons. They are tied record wise, but lose the tiebreaker to the Atlanta Falcons. And the Falcons are playing the Jets this week. So hopefully, on paper, we win that game. But we have blown games this season before and in the past. So I'm sure people will say that. But the Saints, crucial for them too, because if they lose this game and the Falcons win, they're essentially 2 games back, and then we'll have to go and win a couple more games against Falcons and hope that they lose as well. But Ryan, I want to throw it over to you here first, because one of the things I think that has really been plaguing the Lions over these past couple of weeks, they barely eked out a win against the Chicago Bears in Week 11, but last week, as we saw against the Packers, lots of turnovers. I believe 6 turnovers over the past 2 games.
Yeah.
What has been going on kind of with this Lions team? Do you think it's just a little bump in the road, and maybe it's a good time to be playing poorly now before you start playing football in December or January?
Yeah, I think so. They came out swinging this year, and for me, when you start out super hot, you usually hit that like mid-season dip, and your team overall is probably getting better throughout the year, but when you come out so hot and you're riding high, I think mentally sometimes you think you're so good, the team just kind of might not focus on some of the small details that it should. You make a couple small mistakes, and in the NFL, it is a game of inches, literally. Like there are times where games are decided by 4 inches, and the Lions, I think, over the last few weeks just kind of might have let their guard down. They're not covering all their bases, and I think this is a really good get right game for them, because I don't think the Saints are. I think the Saints could beat them, but I don't think. I don't think they. Well, not to give it away. I don't think they will. Nor do I think that they're really even kind of the same caliber of team.
Yeah. And so, sorry, actually, I want to make a correction. It was 7 turnovers in the past 2 games. Jared Goff specifically had 6, 3 picks against the Bears, and then 3 fumbles against the Packers. And I agree with that, as well as the Saints team. They're very unique because they have no issues moving the ball. It just once they get close to the end zone, everything seems to stop. Yeah, once they get inside the red zone. Even against the Falcons here, 5 field goals against them. Moved the ball decently well, especially then too, considering that there were some injuries that were sustained during the game. But still, in general, were able to move the ball well, but just couldn't find the end zone once when they got in the red zone. And that's been kind of their bugaboo the entire year. Even when Alvin Kamara has come back, Alvin Kamara has definitely helped. He is just keeps these drives going. He's a very consistent, loyal guy to Derek Carr. He always knows that he can count on him. On a 2nd and 8, it almost seems like they do 4 verts and then they just dump the ball off to Alvin Kamara, knowing he's going to get 3 or 4 yards. So that's something that the Lions are really going to have to go after and watch, make sure that Kamara stays in check. And then after that, Saints have one of the weakest offensive lines in the entire league. Yeah. And one of the things, the Packers, who I also think have a weak offensive line, a young offensive line, but they actually kept Aiden Hutchinson and a defensive front in check. No sacks at all allowed in the Thanksgiving game.
Well, only Saints, 4 quarterback hits. Who was the only?
Yeah, that's a very good game by that offensive line. The Saints need to replicate that performance, I think, if they really want to have a shot. If Derek Carr's running for his life, if he's not able to be able to have a clean pocket, or has to check it down to Alvin Kamara immediately, it's going to be really tough, I think, for this offense to keep the drives going. A couple things of note also, too. Michael Thomas is on IR. I just want to double check that, actually. Yes, he is on IR. Sorry. I just want to make sure. Also, Chris Olave sustained a concussion in the game against the Atlanta Falcons here. So
Marshawn Lattimore is on IR as well now.
He is also on IR. Yep, that was going before the Falcons game as well. Then Chris Olave also sustained a concussion, so his status definitely needs to be monitored. Going to be very close to see if he'll be able to play or not. Also, too, Rashid Shaheed got banged up during the game as well against the Atlanta Falcons, and he was just battling the injuries all throughout the game. It seemed like he'd get hurt, but then would come back in. But then I think finally a thigh injury is what made him not come back in. So your top 3 receivers are out, and even Juwan Johnson took a couple of big hits as well. So your top 4 receivers outside of Alvin Kamara all got banged up in that game, and Marshawn Lattimore got hurt, and Cameron Jordan also hurt his shin in the game as well, and was not nearly as effective as they were likely to be. I say all that so just because of just the magnitude for the Saints for this game to keep that momentum going or to try and get some momentum back. And it seems like all of your stars are hurt. Even Derek Carr has been banged up this entire season. It's going to be interesting. I'm trying to figure out a way on how they stop this team who is 5th in overall rushing on the entire season, while the Saints rushing defense in and of itself.
You beat me to it. I was going to say that is the matchup for this game for me, because I think if you're the Lions, you want to come in and I think you want to reassert how physical this team is, because I think you've gotten away from that as Jameson Williams has come back and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think this team has maybe switched philosophies a little bit to try and spread it out and air things out and do deeper dropbacks where, when this team was really successful, they were running the ball down Kansas City's throat. They were running the ball down Carolina, Tampa Bay, Green Bay. They were running all over these teams. And I think they've just kind of stepped away from that. And they've, granted, you draft a guy like Jameson Williams, you don't buy a Ferrari and then put it in the garage.
But he's to defend the Lions. They're recovered from an ACL and then the 6-game suspension, so he's had a very unique start to his NFL career.
Yeah, but it's fair. But yes, I think they're trying to force it instead of just he's not a possession guy. And I just think maybe they're trying to spread the ball around too much when the strength of that team really is this offensive line, the physicality that they bring. And then giving David Montgomery 20 to 25 carries a game, Jahmyr Gibbs another 10 to 15. And then by the fourth quarter, they're getting 6-7 yards a carry. This defense is absolutely exhausted and beaten down. And that to me, I think is just they need to get back to that style of play. So
I will say one thing too, and this is kind of the final thing to say as well before going into our predictions here. But I'm going to butcher his name, but I'll just say Hala Vate. I'm pretty sure he was their left guard. He was one of their guards. Is on IR, and it seems unlikely he's going to return back this season. Maybe he'll come back to the playoffs, but that's still unsure. And I think I bring that up because one of the strengths for this Lions, and you talk about being that enforcer, being that physical, it's like running down your throat type team, is just how dominant the offensive line has been. But if that starts to get banged up, that you start to see some of those cracks, that's just going to affect the overall kind of performance of the run game. Then it's going to rely a little bit more on Jared Goff, who needs to be more protective of the football, which is where then we've seen those 6 turnovers in 2 games from him. So I think some of that, if there is a chink in the armor in that offensive line, we might see that trickle-down effect, and that's where the Saints might need to capitalize. But in general, though, the Lions are definitely the healthier team overall. It seems coming into this matchup here, and just a more dominant team, better team in the trenches. So it's going to be interesting to see how the overall game plays out. And let's get on to our predictions here. But before we do that, if you have not already, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notified whenever Ryan and I release new content. We have a very fun, unique goal here. Normally we do kind of like little small special ones, but we've done the math. If we can get to 2,333 subscribers, we would have grown our football community by 2,000 subscribers, and you would have helped us out to get there. So help us reach our goal. It is Christmas season, the season of giving. So subscribe, and ring the bell. And Ryan, who do you have winning this game? And
I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions. I think after that loss on Thanksgiving, they're going to come out with something to prove. I think they're going to get back to that physical style of play that they were in the first 6 games of the year when they went 5-1. And for me, I think just matchup wise, you mentioned it, 5th best running offense in the league against the 22nd ranked running defense in the league. I think they come out, they play downhill on the offensive side of the ball, and then you run passing plays off of David Montgomery play action in that. So I just think this matchup favors the Lions a lot, and I'm going to go with the Lions.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you said. I just think at the end of the day, the Lions just going to have to be like, look, even when healthy, we're just the better team on paper.
Yeah.
The Saints have had trouble scoring the ball, scoring touchdowns. They move the ball well down the field, but as I mentioned, once they get into the opponent's territory, especially once they get in field goal range, just that Dennis Allen offense just seems to struggle. So that all being said, though, as I mentioned, Lions are just the better team. They need to go out, win this game. They need to win this game. Be very unique, too, because also the Eagles and 49ers are playing as well, number 1 and number 2 seed currently. So if the Eagles win and they get a game up on the Niners, maybe they can have the number 2 seed. Or then if the Niners win and then they both win, then they're only 1 game back from the Eagles for overall home field advantage. So make that very, very interesting here. Saints, obviously, then on the other side, though, fighting for the division. And the wild card is also still in play, too, especially with the Seahawks and Vikings not playing up to the best that they can. So it's going to be very interesting to see down the stretch. Both teams have a lot to play for. So it's going to be a lot of fun here, and looking forward to seeing this Week 13 matchup.
Yeah. So we're both taking the Lions. Let's go ahead and wrap this video up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on who you think is going to come out ahead. And please help Tyler and I reach that goal of getting to 2,333 subscribers. And other than that, we'll see you guys next time.